Welcome to our third lesson of our Bible class series on the Sermon on the Mount, Authentic Christian Living. Hope everything is going well with you and that you're staying healthy and God is blessing you. Encourage you. Get comfortable. Get something to drink. Get a cup of coffee. And as we jump into our study together, we're going to be looking this week at Matthew chapter 5, verses 13 through 16. So, encourage you, open your Bibles up. And as we jump into the text, I want us to just jump straight into the text. And so I'll put it up on the screen here in a second. But I'm going to be reading to you the text from the New International Version as well as the paraphrased version by Eugene Peterson called The Message. So let's read this together and kind of jump into the text as we look at it together. Matthew 5:13 through 16, New International Version. You are the salt of the earth. If the salt loses its saltiness, how can it become salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a lamp stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. And again, we'll read it from the Message this time. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here to be salt seasoning that brings out God's flavors in this world. If you lose your saltiness, how will people taste godliness? You've lost your usefulness and will end up in the garbage. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light. Bring out God's colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. You're going public with this, as public as a city on the hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up to God. Be generous, this generous Father who is in heaven. Let's talk a little bit about salt and light. First off, salt. Even to this day, salt comes in many shapes. You can go to the store and you can buy iodinized salt. We put this on our tables and sprinkle it on our food. There's other kinds of salt. Went downstairs and right outside the door, we've got it ready because this Sunday it's supposed to snow. It's this blue stuff you put out on the street, and we call it salt, and it's got different things in it. But we put it to melt away the ice and snow. Even in Bible days, salt was used for a lot of different things. It was used for seasoning your food like we still do today. It was used as a preservative to preserve meat. You put it on your meat and you can make jerky out of it so it lasts for a long time. Sometimes they'd dilute it and use it as fertilizer, is what historian tells us. And you can still use it to put nitrate. Today even you'll see animals licking salt licks to find that nutrients they need. In Bible times, they'd even use it as medicine. But salt was something that was very vital. It was so important that even in their culture, sometimes it was the equivalent of money that they would exchange with people. And so when he looks out at the crowd and he says, "You are salt." Okay, what kind of salt do you mean? Well, what do you mean by that? Well, the allegory that he's using here, this illustration he's trying to get us to see is, you make a difference. That you are expected as Christians, whether it's a preservative, whether it is a medicinal, it's a healing, it is supposed to be someone that is powerful in doing something. He uses a second illustration, the idea of light. Even to this day, light is such a vital source. I spent 15-20 minutes trying to set up lighting here so that I have a bright light so you could see me here. If you've ever been without lights, you kind of get nervous. I love lights. I even carry around this little bitty pen light in my pocket because I don't want to get caught. If something falls underneath the table, I want to be able to shine out underneath it. It's only 100 lumens, but I started thinking, I do have kind of a light thing that I like. I've got a collection of flashlights. I dug out of my drawer here in my office. I've got this little bitty one, and this one here, this is a 300 lumen. I've got one at home that it even has 1800 lumens. That thing, you take it outside at night on a starry night, and you can shine it up, and you see the beam pointing and just penetrating stars. I saw one on the internet the other night that was 90,000 lumens. You could blind people on the space station with that. I'm like, maybe I need to do some shopping. But lights are fun, and we need them. They help us to see. They help us to be able to function and live. And many times, I think, in our culture, we take for granted lights. Think back to Bible times, though, what it would have been like. You get up at the sunrise because that allows you to function. You didn't have lights in your houses that were shining down on you. You didn't just flip a switch that you could see things with. You function during the daylight hours because at night, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to have to light a lamp because you can't see everything. And anytime you have a lamp, it illuminates in a little spot. Then you have these dark little corners around you. And so when he says, you're the light of the world, you're what keeps the world functioning. Both of these things, I want you to understand, they really are something that are powerful, and they make a difference. And so when we stop and think, Jesus is looking at us and saying, you my followers, you're salt and light. He's calling us to be a couple of things. He's calling us to be people that make a difference in our world, people that really do matter, people that are notable in our community. A couple of quick things from the text I want you to look at in this, and I want you to see from this. And as we jump into it, that I really want you to bring out. Number one is I want you to realize that He is calling us and He expects us to be different from the world. That we as Christians have to ask ourselves, are we truly different from them? Because if we're just like the world, we're just darkness like the world is. Or we just, according to what he says there, if your salt loses its saltiness, you throw it out. It's garbage. It's worthless. And so if we're followers of Jesus, we should be making a difference. And then we have to ask ourselves, how am I different? It's interesting historically how people have tried to be different. Sometimes they would dress differently. You look at the Amish and Mennonite people, and they are people that really love God and are devoted to God. And they've decided that the way they're going to be different is they're not going to have hooks on their coats, or they're just going to put hooks. They aren't going to put snaps and buttons. They're going to live simply because that's what God calls them to do, I believe. Well, I'm not sure that that's exactly what God's calling them to do, but at least they're trying to be different. I think if you look at the text, what he's talking about more, though, is we're called to make a difference in the world. That we're not called to live like the world in attitude. We're not called to live, and as he gets on later on in the text, this kind of illuminates and shadows into the future part of the text, but he gets into some ways that we are to be different. How are you supposed to be different? Well, the things you look at, the way you treat each other, the things you value. But first of all, we're called to be different than the world. The second thing that we have to ask ourselves as we read this text is, are we influencing the world? The world should see us and they should note that we're different. Yes, but they also should see us and realize we're having an impact. And I need to ask myself, am I having an impact on the world? Well, maybe not the whole world, the world at large, and maybe yes. But at the same time, at the very least, I should be impacting those in my little world around me. Am I impacting and leading my wife, my children, my neighbors, my community? All these things. We need to be illuminating. We need to be shining that flashlight and penetrating and making a difference in our world. Because if we're not the light. We're not the salt. In your notes, there's some discussion questions. And I really want to encourage you, spend some time sharing with each other, writing them out if you're doing this by yourself, but if you're doing it with other people, spend some time talking about What does it mean to be salt and light? What does it mean that you are the light of the world? How do we do that? We can really become these Christians who live in our holy bubble, or do we make an impact? There's a statement that I've heard said by different people: is there too much world in the church or too little church in the world? I think we have to have that balance where we are in the world, but yet we're impacting the world, and that becomes essential. And so, talk about that together. Even explore the idea: what causes Christians to lose their saltiness, to grow dim in their light? How can we be a city on the hill? How can we be of the light of the world? As you look at those things, I want to encourage you, spend some time exploring that together. There's something I want us to get into that I read about this week in one of the devotionals I was reading, and I thought this was really a neat concept. It's a Hebrew concept that is in the Old Testament called tikkun olam. This is basically a teaching of Judaism that came about. Well, we read about it in the Mishnah, which are the oral traditions of the Jews, but we know it was taught before Jesus was alive. And basically, tikkun olam means repairing the world. It was this belief that we need to pursue justice, we need to pursue compassion, we need to show acts of kindness, great and small, to impact our world. Many times when I read the Old Testament, I'm thinking of the sacrificial system. I'm thinking about making sure I follow the laws and those kind of things. But this seems to be founded in many of the Jewish teachings, and they pull it out of so many parts of the Old Testament. But I really think Jesus is taking tikkun olam here and exploring that with us, that we need to be repairing our world. That's what salt and light does. It penetrates the world. It changes the world. It makes a difference. How are you doing that? How are you becoming a repairing factor for the world? That's what salt and light does. Salt and light make an impact on our world. There's lots of things on your handout there, some practical ways to apply this. Whether it's just simple ways that you show kindness, that you are salt and light in your home. Whether it's with your neighbors, with other people. I was talking with someone this week, and she shared with me how that she had extra groceries, and so she walked around to the people in her apartment complex and making sure that they all had something to eat. Her son had bought several face masks so that people could go to the grocery store, and she walked around and made sure, hey, do you need a face mask? Can we share that with you? My friend's being a salt and light, isn't she? She is showing God's love and kindness in her community, in her apartment building. My challenge to you is look for ways that you can do that. Right now, as we're dealing with this coronavirus, we're limited in what we can do. But we can still be salt and light. We can still be beacons of hope and love to people around us. Look for opportunities. If that's picking up the telephone and calling someone, if that's sending an email or writing a card to someone, be salt and light. And not just with the Christians that you live with. Let's get out of our own holy bubble and impact our world as well. Let's look for opportunities that we can share God's love with other people. Again, if you didn't get a copy of my handout, you're welcome to email me. If you can't find the link and you want a copy, email me, daryl@longmontcoc.org. I'll be happy to send you a copy. Or if you just want to talk about the text or whatever, send me an email. Give me a phone call, and I'd love to sit down and we can talk about what does this mean, and we can go over some of this. Next week, we're going to be exploring continuing on in our text in Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 26, where he talks about idiots and morons. And so I invite you to spend some time studying the text. As always, as we look at the text, I think it's so important you spend some time reading through Matthew 5, 6, and 7. If If there's anything you get out of this class more than that, I think we need to be grounded in it. We need to know this text, maybe better than any other text in the Bible. It is so powerful, and it can make such a difference in those of us who are followers of Jesus' life, that we can grow and mature and make an impact in our world. So I encourage you, read through the text a few times at least this week. Spend some time praying about it, asking how God would show you how to live better and more faithfully for Him. Thank you for joining me. See you next week.